Welcome back to another episode of Lost in the Farmer's Market Garden Shorts. We're continuing with this cold season oriented conversation because, well, why the heck not? So today before you, you see 3 plants. They're all the same species, they're just different shapes, colors, and textures. I don't think I have to tell you that these are lettuces. Lettucei? Lettucet. There's no plural for that, whatever. This is 3 different forms of lettuce, and here is the pointy stick of doom. As you can see, this one's none too happy, but I thought it would be interesting to show y'all how dramatically lettuces wilt when they're not watered. This one's part of the way there, this one's pretty much there, and this one's doing something that's definitely worthy of note. I'm going to zoom in real quick and I'll show you that. You see this elongation that's going on here? Well, what you can't see is up top, that is a flower head. That's what we call bolting. But let's get into the scientific name, because that'll tell you a bit of a story. The scientific name of lettuce is Lactuca sativa. Lac is a Latin word for dairy, which refers to the milky sap that comes out of these plants when they're, well, damaged. The wild versions or wild lettuce, which is Lactuca cereola, which you will find growing in your backyard, they can get up to 6 feet tall, mind you, has a lot of this milky sap, but we've selectively bred that out so that the lettuce is less bitter and more desirable for eating. Now, sativa means sown, as in I've sown seed in the field, or cultivated. Ha ha ha, sativa. Very nice. Yeah, so there you go. Now what's interesting is that all of lettuce falls in the aster family. It's Asteraceae, aka the daisies. So this is the most common daisy you will see on your plate, which is amazing. They have, when they bloom, when these plants bloom, the flowers are so obviously daisy-like. They look like little miniature dandelion flowers, and dandelions are also a daisy. In fact, one of the most common uses of daisies in your everyday life is in the form of chicory, also known as endive, also known as that coffee substitute under that brand Louisiane. That's not a plug, just pointing that out. But I digress there. Now, apparently, lettuce originated somewhere in Southwest Asia, but it was domesticated in the Mediterranean into this form. Now, in terms of the Mediterranean, we know that it was first cultivated on a large scale by the Egyptians, specifically to extract oil from the seeds. This was done as early as 2680 BCE. So we know that lettuce has been around for a while. It's in a bunch of texts. It's referenced in a bunch of places. Lettuce has been around as a staple food for a very long time. Now, humanity has domesticated it to have these neat colors, these fluffy shapes. I mean, look at these neat leaves. The problem with them bolting is that as they bolt, the sugars are extracted from the leaves and go toward the flowers to encourage growth. So lettuce becomes bitter. Bolting is the term for when a plant tries to bloom, and it's a bad thing. Some plants, when it's bloom, we want this, but in certain food crops, we don't. This elongated stem is a surefire sign that the plant has been stressed and is going to try to go to seed. It's basically like, oh God, I think I'm dying, time to fire some babies. No, literally, it's really weird when you think about it. Much like dandelions and other things, the seeds on lettuce can travel a fair distance on little filaments. It's actually pretty fascinating, and yet it's the plant equivalent of firing babies out of an air cannon. Nature, why you be so crazy? Anyway, lettuce is considered a short season annual and will grow in all USA zones 11 through 2. I'm sure you can grow it in further colder zones than 2, but I don't know what kind of gardening gymnastics it would take to get there. I know you can grow it in warmer climates. However, heat is lettuce's enemy. The race to breed a lettuce that can withstand summer heat is a thing, and the ag industry, puts a lot of money into trying to do that. Unfortunately, it's hit or miss. You've got slow bolting types, but with the, and you know, I should point out, lettuce freely hybridizes. So if you have 3 crops of lettuce and they're 3 different types, and any of them get to flowering stage, the pollen transfers readily, and your saved seed for the next year may be a mutant. This is a biological survival mechanism, and it's a very clever one at that. Basically, lettuce just rolls up its pant leg and goes, "Hey, sailor," to other lettuce, left and right. I don't know if it crosses with anything else, but I do know it will willingly cross with wild lettuce, which, by the way, is a forage food. It's not great, but it's better than starving. What am I going to say? Now, lettuce prefers a soil pH of 6 through 7. It is very sensitive to nutrient deficiencies and overcrowding. So keep that in mind when you're growing rows of it. You will have to thin lettuce. In this case, having 2 plants in the pot is not exactly a good thing. It's good for the buyer, but it's not great for the lettuces. In this case, pot-bound, limited water, stress. Oh, and I should mention, this variety is Paris Island. This is one of the oak leaf heirloom types that's just random genetics. It's really cool looking. It's a red oak leaf type. This is a red Paris Island, and this is black-seeded Simpson down here. It was a seed mix, and I thinned as best I could, and it, as you can see, it kind of worked, sorta, maybe, sorta, maybe. Now, exposure is full sun to partial shade. However, I should point out, if it's exposed to excessive days with temperatures above 70 degrees, it may bolt. Too much sun is considered a stressor just as much as overcrowding and other problems like inability to keep the soil moist and other such stuff. Amazingly, I drenched these pots down yesterday with the hose so that there was actually water coming out of the bottom hole. They drank that dry in less than 24 hours because the temperatures are hitting 80 degrees in October. Again, nature, why are you so crazy? Now, as for height and width, it's kind of an average that lettuce can be expected to get anywhere from 6 to 12 inches tall and maybe 2 to 10 wide. It depends also on the variety. In fact, let's talk about that for a second. There are a lot of types of lettuce. I mean, an obscene amount of types of lettuce. And these are just the official ones I'm going to list. Leaf, also known as loose leaf, aka cutting bunching lettuce. That's basically, think like something like bib lettuce, but even looser and fluffier. Bonnie sells a version of red lettuce called red sales, which is definitely a loose leaf type. Romaine or cause. Now, this Paris Island, these are both romaine types. They're preferred for salads and sandwiches because the leaves are nice and straight, they don't attract much dirt, bugs can't hide really well, and they form nice oval heads that are easy to pack and ship. I personally prefer them for the less cleaning part because, oh lord, there's nothing worse than eating a salad and suddenly you crunch on something and you know it's dirt or sand and you're just like, "Ah!" But you're in polite company so you don't want to spit it out and you're just sitting there chewing on your dirt meal. Ugh, no thank you. Now, next on the list is iceberg, aka crisp head. Now we all know iceberg. Iceberg needs no introduction. It's nutrient deficient, it's mostly made of water, it doesn't taste like much of anything. I mean, you know it's crunchy, you know it's a plant, but it's the Wonder Bread of lettuces. And yes, I'm making fun of Wonder Bread. It tastes like nothing. Your stomach's full for like 5 seconds, and then it's like, hey, where's the meat and potatoes? Now, of course, you know, I remember reading an article in the New Yorker like 2 years ago talking about how great iceberg and how it's the superior lettuce, and I'm like, ha! You've been doing drugs again. Next up is butterhead, aka Boston or bib. Now that's also one of my favorites. Black-seeded Simpson is kind of a bib type. Bibs are loose-leafed, airy, they have a nice flavor, they're crunchy, they go good in almost everything. They can't be the whole salad, but should be about 30% of the salad for lettuce leaves anyway, and you will never be disappointed. Bib is like that lettuce used to be when it had flavor. I know, For some of you out there thinking, but lettuce is not supposed to have flavor. That's not true. Just because fast food puts iceberg on everything and that's what you get at the restaurants doesn't mean it's true. Homegrown lettuce has crazy flavors. I recommend black seeded Simpson or oak leaf salad bowl or any of the old types. Next, summer crisp. It's sort of a midway between iceberg and leaf lettuce. I've never had this one, but based on the descriptors for it, I would imagine that it's definitely going to be more greener and more flavorful. But then again, that's like saying, that's not saying much. That's like, I mean, since iceberg doesn't taste like anything, you could literally do anything to iceberg and it would be more flavorful. So that's not saying much. But I think it sounds like a noticeable improvement. Now, here's one that I know you haven't heard of. Celtus, aka asparagus lettuce. That's a breed of lettuce that I've thought about growing for a couple of years and I just never get around to it, that has a big fat central stem that's actually used as a cooking vegetable. You eat the leaves as normal, but it's a lettuce that is bred for cooking. You can cut that little thing up and you could cut the stem up and throw it in a salad, sure. It's tender. But it takes a whole new dimension on lettuce because normally lettuces are all leaf and very little stem. It has a different nutritional value, it's a different texture, and it's something worth considering, and it's a very old-timey thing. You'll find it in the, like Seed Savers and in their Seed Savers Southern Exposure. You'll see it in their catalog. It might be worth looking out for our climate, just like marrow stem kale, which is an old-timey kale where the stem never gets the fibers, so you can eat that too. Waste not, want not. Am I right? Now lastly, we have oilseed. Now remember how I mentioned the Egyptians were growing lettuce for oil? Well, oilseed is nowadays typically used to produce oil for cooking, but it was used for all kinds of stuff during the ancient Egyptian Empire. What's interesting about oilseed is that it's fast bolting. It goes from 0 to, in no time, flat. And its seeds are noticeably larger. On average, they say 50% larger, but lettuce seed is not known to be the biggest seed ever, so that's, I suppose, relative. Point is that it is quite unique, and it's very specialized. Now, as a last note on this, I'm going to talk about the nutrition of lettuce per 1 cup shredded, which means it may actually be by weight more than 1 cup, but by volume. Yeah. 10 milligrams of sodium, 70 milligrams of potassium, 0.5 grams of protein, 53% of your vitamin A uptake for the day, 5% of your vitamin C uptake for the day, 1% calcium, 1% iron, 1% magnesium. In short, lettuce is surprisingly nutritious as long as you steer away from iceberg. Ugh, iceberg. But it's one of those plants that is a short season, cold weather annual because it will not tolerate heat at all. It will not tolerate stressors, it will not tolerate nutritional deficiencies, and the problem with lettuce is that everything eats it. You, various animals, there are a number of bugs and critters that will go right after your lettuce patch. I recommend growing it in pots, honestly, because then you can manage it a little better and keep it out of the way of rogue rabbits and squirrels and things. But it's definitely something you should have in your spring and fall garden. It'll survive frost amazingly, though I would protect it from any protracted cold. And it's, as long as the soil is reasonably nutrient dense, it should be just fine. Otherwise, it responds well to liquid fertilizers, and since it's a leaf green, you're growing it for the leaves, ideally, you want to hit it with extra nitrogen. Beyond that, the type of lettuce you pick is up to your own personal taste, and I can only throw out a recommendation of Paris Island for Zone 8A. It's a romaine type that was bred on Paris Island, the place where they train Marines, or used to train Marines, and so it can take our heat better. It lasts longer, it's tastier. But beyond that, that's all I got for you today. So if you like this, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, let me know about your lettuce experiences. And as always, folks, keep them growing. Thanks for watching.